The Locked On Podcast Network presents the NFL Big 3 in 30. The three biggest stories in the NFL from our local experts at the Locked On Podcast Network. We bring you the real story, why it matters, what's next, who wins the big game, and more, all in 30 minutes. The NFL Big 3 in 30 starts now with the biggest story in the NFL.
The blockbuster trade, more time to think about it. I've watched more film, what it actually means for the Steelers.
You are Locked On Steelers, your daily Pittsburgh Steelers podcast.
The Steelers have traded away Minkah Fitzpatrick and a 2027 fifth round pick, not a 2026 fifth round pick. So this is 2 years down the line. And in return, they have gotten back Jalen Ramsey, former All-Pro cornerback, Jonnu Smith, Pro Bowl tight end from this last season, and a 2027 seventh round pick. So a pick swap basically for Jonnu Smith and a straight up for Jalen Ramsey and Minkah Fitzpatrick. Alan, before we get into the particulars of this, your thoughts on the trade itself and what it does for the Steelers?
Well, they're getting a large infusion of talent, and basically, I mean, in my eyes, trading nothing for Jonnu Smith. I mean, a 2-year out, fifth for a seventh is barely rates. They had an extra fifth from the Pickens trade as well. So it really means basically nothing. I think that's huge. It's huge for an offense that has big problems with the number of pass catchers in a unit that's probably going to want to throw the ball more with Aaron Rodgers this year. It will not wave away their wide receiver 2 problem. But
agreed.
It will sort of lessen the impact a little bit of how much that problem can hurt them, I think. And then, Ramsey versus Fitzpatrick is interesting. 2 players on the downhill of their career, 130, 128. I think Fitzpatrick is interesting because I haven't seen a physical decline. He just hasn't played as well. But if you compare their play over the last couple of years, I think Ramsey's been better. It's going to look bad for the Steelers if Fitzpatrick goes to Miami and suddenly goes back to being the all-pro version of himself.
Very true.
But I think if you just look at the players they've been, Ramsey has been the better and more valuable player.
I agree in the sense the last couple of years. I think that's you can look at that, especially Ramsey creates turnovers. He also hasn't gotten picked on in Miami. He's allowed a few touchdowns, and when I look through the tape, a lot of those touchdowns that were attributed to him were oftentimes him playing underneath coverage and expecting safety help, and the safety just being nowhere to be found. And after the play, he just looks at the guy like, "Come on!" And so I thought that was a little interesting. So I hear you on that. I want to push back on this notion that we've seen across national media, and I get it because it's the popular thing to do. It's an easy talking point, but this notion that this move and the getting Aaron Rodgers and trading for DK Metcalf, that the Steelers are now quote unquote all in on the season. The Steelers do want to win. Like, there's no doubt in my mind they want to win this season, and but just as much as they always want to win every season. I don't think anything's changed there. But where people are saying all in to me does not mean just making something. They would be all in if they traded a second round pick or a third round pick for Jalen Ramsey and instead of Minkah Fitzpatrick. And now Minkah Fitzpatrick was still with the team. And if they didn't get a third round pick for George Pickens, if he was still on the team, all in would be saying, hey, we're amassing every piece of talent for right now. And we are saying we don't care about the 2026 NFL draft. We don't care about trading up for a quarterback next year. It is win now with Aaron Rodgers. That would be all in. But that's not what they've done. When you look at what they've done when you look at the additions of the older players they've brought in, Aaron Rodgers, DK Metcalf, Darius Slay, Jalen Ramsey, Jonnu Smith, all those players, they gave up a 2025 second round pick. They gave up Minkah Fitzpatrick, and they gave a 2027 fifth round pick. And they got a pick back for that. And in giving away George Pickens, they got back a third-round pick for 2026. That is not all in on the 2025 season. All in would be the way the Rams approached their era in the NFL. When you look back at their history, the Rams were a team that when you go back and you look at how they handled the draft, for 7 straight years, the Rams did not have a first-round pick. That is going all in. And they cashed in. Aaron Donald got a Super Bowl ring. Matt Stafford came to town. That that is going all in. But to me, Alan, I don't think it's that. Am I on? Do you agree with me here? Or do you feel like this is them putting all their chips on the table?
I mean, that's pretty easy, Chris. How many contracts did the Steelers restructure, pushing money out beyond the 2025 season this offseason?
None.
How many free agent contracts did the Steelers sign containing void years to artificially reduce the current cap hit at the expense of the future cap hit?
None.
How many future draft picks did they trade away this offseason for a player for this year?
None.
I mean, okay, they're not all in. Like, you play poker, all in is all the chips.
All my chips.
Those are all chips
exactly.
that Omar Khan is holding on to, saying, okay, we want to win. And we're doing everything we can to win. The Steelers are doing everything they can to win without taking away from the future. Yeah. That's where they're doing everything they can to win without taking away from the future. And if you follow the NFL, you know the teams that are really doing everything they can to win are like, forget the future. You mentioned Rams and all the picks. How about the Eagles and the way they've leveraged void years to way overspend the cap right now? You got to pay the piper eventually. It's not like they can do that forever. They're picking right now is their time to win. The Steelers did that for years with the contract restructure.
That's where I was going to go to next.
Kick the can down the road, okay? They're not doing any of those things, so they cannot be all in. I think part of the problem is that people don't understand the Steelers are not playing a binary game. People have it in their mind that either you are doing everything you're doing to try to win or you should be tanking. And that is not who they are, and that's not what they're all about. They're building this team. They're in the middle of a massive rebuild.
Yes.
Yeah, they got some older pieces. But the idea is when this team wins a Super Bowl, the core of this team is going to be Zach Frazier and Keanu Benton and Broderick Jones and Derek Harmon. And guys like Slay and Ramsey are probably not going to be around. Would they like to win a Super Bowl this year? Sure. Is that realistic? Probably not. I mean, despite everything they've done, and I think that's the other part of this. The other part of this is that there have been times in NFL history and maybe even this year in the NFL in a certain situation where you could look at this Steelers team and say, yes, that would be a good bet to go all in. But everything they've done, all these moves that have everybody saying they're going all in, they're still got the third best odds to win the AFC North. They still, and that doesn't even include talking about Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes trying to get out of the AFC. It's just the situation is Omar is holding them chips because he's got a pair of sevens. Exactly. It's a good hand, but it's not the best. And he knows the guy over there has got aces. Right? So just hang on and save your chips for the right time, and it's not just yet.
Pay that man here the money. But in all seriousness, there's my Rounders joke. But I'm right with you here. Now, here's the thing. I will agree. I do say this. Omar Khan is switching some things up. Like, this man is turning over the roster every single year. So, like, this will be his fifth straight year with a new quarterback starting at the quarterback position. Granted, I don't think it was him that started within 2021. He wasn't officially GM, but still, it's the team's fifth straight year of Ben Roethlisberger, Mitch Trubisky, Kenny Pickett, Justin Fields, and now it will be Aaron Rodgers. 5 straight years of a different quarterback starting at the beginning of the season for your team. And you look at all the other turnover that they have gone through just to try to reshuffle things, get the right guys in, get the wrong guys out, and make things happen. Omar Khan's not sitting on his hands. So he's definitely being aggressive, but aggressive is not the same as, like you're saying, all in. I 1,000% agree with you. Aggressive would be if we wake up 9 a.m. tomorrow, we did on Monday, or if you're watching this Tuesday, we wake up today, and all of a sudden Terry McLaurin is a Pittsburgh Steeler for a second-round pick. They're like, okay, they are all in now. Like, this is all in. They're giving away top picks for really, really good players to win right now. Then I would be there, but that's not what they're doing. So we're agreed on that. But let's talk about next the impact of how this works on the defense, because essentially they have swapped a former All-Pro safety for a former All-Pro cornerback.
Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app, it's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place so you stop just managing your money and start building wealth. Instead of juggling multiple apps, you can use Monarch to check your finances, track spending, and even plan long-term goals. Managing money with your partner is smoother than ever. You can track shared and personal accounts, set goals, and stay on the same page without the stress. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNFL at monarchmoney.com, 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNFL for half off your first year.
Jalen Ramsey, gone. Jonnu Smith, gone. Minkah Fitzpatrick, welcome back.
You are Locked On Dolphins, your daily Miami Dolphins podcast.
This deal has a number of significant layers interwoven on top of each other in something that comes across as more of an NBA trade than any NBA trade that I can remember seeing in the last few years. I mean, the layers here are insane. It gets dropped a couple hours ago, and I waited because I wanted to get as many of the finer details as I possibly could. Jalen Ramsey being traded to the Pittsburgh Steelers. Okay. Wonder what we got. Oh, Jalen Ramsey's getting a pay raise and going to Pittsburgh. Oh, okay. It is what it is. I'm not surprised. 3 raises in 3 years for Jalen. What are they getting back? Minkah Fitzpatrick coming back as a part of the deal. It's a player-for-player swap. You say, wow, that's really rare. The irony there is incredible. You've traded a disgruntled Miami Dolphins defensive back for a former disgruntled Miami Dolphins defensive back. Then Jonnu Smith is announced to be a part of a trade with a pick swap with Pittsburgh. And then it, lo and behold, is all of these things in one massive asteroid of a rock that was thrown at the NFL world on Monday, June 30th. So the full terms of the trade are as such. The Dolphins are trading Jalen Ramsey, tight end Jonnu Smith, and a 2027 7th-round draft choice. And in return are bringing back safety Minkah Fitzpatrick. Sounds familiar. And a 2027 5th-round draft choice. So you can, however you want to rebundle the assets, if it's Ramsey for Minkah, straight up flip, and then Jonnu and a 7 for a 5, or however you want to do the mental gymnastics in your head. What it really boils down to is this. For Pittsburgh, it's pretty straightforward, right? Y'all are all in, right? Black and yellow is gas pedal to the floor with Aaron Rodgers at quarterback and trading for DK Metcalf and now acquiring Jonnu Smith and Jalen Ramsey in one fell swoop. For Miami, it's the latest affirmation in my mind of how the Dolphins have gone about their business this offseason. Everything that they've done, they're giving themselves the opportunity to compete. But in the grand scheme of things, they're playing the long and the short game simultaneously. So the return of Minkah Fitzpatrick, and we're going to talk about Minkah and his role here in this Dolphins secondary, gives you a chance to compete in the here and now. But the financial implications of the trade is where the Dolphins are playing the long game. They're pooling assets. They're choosing not to pay late-stage players big-time money. And Jonnu Smith got a pay raise today, by the way. He went from making $4 million to $12 million on his 1 year left on his contract. So Pittsburgh gave him $12 million. And Jonnu was scheduled to make just over $4 million in Miami this year. So that's another part of this, right? There's another layer to this potpourri of team building ideologies all happening at the same time. The Dolphins paid $3 million of Jalen Ramsey's salary. So the $21.5 million, he ends up getting a raise to 26.6 is the new compensation for Jalen Ramsey. Miami is paying $3 million of his outstanding balance to facilitate the trade. That's half of what I thought they were going to trade in a vacuum of Ramsey of a pick, right? and they bring back Minkah Fitzpatrick at 15.5. But they offload the 21 that was scheduled for Jalen Ramsey. The 4 that was scheduled for Jonnu Smith is 25 minus $3 million that they have to pay is 22. I'm not a math guy, but I can pull that one off. So 22, and they're bringing back, and 22 and change, and they're bringing back 15.5. So the Dolphins, from a cash spend perspective, are saving about $7 million in cash. What do you do with that $7 million? I would assume you're looking at veteran cornerbacks now. It's been reported, I believe Omar Kelly's reported, the Dolphins are calling around about tight ends, looking for another trade opportunity. I'm sure by the time I hit publish on this show, there's going to be another transaction elsewhere, because that's how it happens in Miami land, right? I remember when they moved from 3 to 12 and back to 6, and what a day that was. If I would not at all be surprised if this ends up being another experience like that, and there's a couple of shoes that fall shortly after. But at least now the Dolphins have the clarity on the financing element of this, what they're saving. $7 million in cash. So they offload Jalen, they offload Jonnu, they pay $3 million of Jalen's salary. So those two guys combined, there's still a savings. And then you bring back Minkah Fitzpatrick to fill what's going to be presumably a pretty big role in your secondary. So that's all the parts from an asset perspective. There's a Jonnu Smith conversation about what tight end looks like. We don't know it. There's a cornerback room question. We don't know what that's going to look like, because they've been interested in acquiring players at that position. What I wish I could put into words the fever dream that was this morning from a sitting down, planning your day, have a whole bunch of stuff planned for Monday contents, big day of the week, high traffic day, to the first shoe dropping, and then the second shoe dropping, and then the third shoe dropping. And it was enough to make your head spin. If you lived it in real time on the timeline, I'm sure you felt the same way. If you're only catching up and you're hearing what I have to say, God bless. I hope I can do the justice that you need. But let's talk about Minkah Fitzpatrick as the player that's coming back. And the poetry here is just incredible, right? This is Minkah Fitzpatrick. This was a guy who spurned the Dolphins in year one of a rebuild, as he didn't like the plan for his utilization. And you could tell there was some concerns about the competitive direction of the football team. And Minkah gets traded for a first-round draft choice in 2020 that ended up being the 18th overall pick. And now he's back. And I think when you look at what the Dolphins have in their secondary, when you consider Ife Melifonwu, what he's capable of, you also look at Ashton Davis as a high post type player. You look at the young guys, the Dante Traders and the Patrick McMorrises of the world. You had a lot of guys, and Ashton Davis is a guy who can play high in the post. Minkah, in the same way that Melifonwu has versatility from a coverage implementation standpoint, Minkah Fitzpatrick, from a coverage standpoint, is a very diverse player. Now, I think there's going to be a fine line to walk between weaponizing him in a way in which he wants to be used. Remember, he didn't like how the Dolphins wanted to use him in 2019, but then he went to Pittsburgh, and he didn't like the way the Pittsburgh used him because they left him too high and away from the football. He wanted to be close to the football. So this is, from a coverage perspective, I think a defensive weapon. Now, the tackling elements for Minkah, I think, is where you have some concerns about how consistent he is. And I think that's a blockade potentially from playing him low in support. There's been years where there's been double-digit missed tackle rates. In 2021, it was 12% missed tackle rate. It's been better in recent years, but I also think the way that Minkah's been used, he's kind of fallen into a happy medium from an implementation standpoint. The ball production's also been down. He has one interception in the last 2 seasons, Minkah does, but he played all 17 games last year. He is coming off a year in which he played 1,083 snaps. He missed 7 games in 2023, but it's been 939 or more snaps in every other year since. So this has been a pretty durable player. He's 28 years old. He's going to turn 29 in November. He's due 15.5 this year and then more in 2026, but it's not guaranteed salary. So they're going to have a chance to see how it works with Minkah, and then you have an opportunity to potentially do a contract extension if things go well, and if things don't go well, there's an exit strategy, which you did not really have with the Jalen Ramsey contract other than to get out of the deal, right, that you gave him. And he, in the process, got himself a fresh raise.
Summer sports are in full swing, and whether you're all about baseball under the lights, golf on the green, or high-stakes soccer action, FanDuel is the best way to make every game even more exciting. You're already following the action. Why not make it a little more thrilling? With FanDuel, you can get in on the game while your friends are getting sunburned at the beach. I've been using FanDuel to track my favorite matchups, and the app keeps it fresh with new daily promotions and fun ways to bet. It's easy to use, fast to pay out, and makes even regular season games feel like must-watch events. Whether I'm placing a same-game parlay or watching a bet ride into the 9th inning, FanDuel makes it feel like I'm a part of the action. If you're new to FanDuel, new customers can bet just $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. Open the FanDuel app today or visit FanDuel.com to get started.
The Buffalo Bills have a top 5 offensive line in the NFL, and every player is coming back.
You are Locked On Bills, your daily Buffalo Bills podcast.
The Buffalo Bills' top 9 offensive linemen from last year are all back. Not just the starting 5, but the 4 primary backups all back in the mix for this coming season. And again, continuity just for continuity isn't necessarily a good thing. But you're talking about the top 9 offensive linemen from one of the best offensive lines in the NFL. I host 2 other podcasts in addition to this one. Locked On NFL Scouting. It's a daily podcast with Kyle Krabs where we talk team building across the league. The other podcast that I host is called NFL First Read. It's a film and analytics podcast that's twice per week. And Brett Whitefield, who's my co-host on that podcast, we recently did an episode where we ranked the offensive lines in the NFL. I had the Bills at number 4. Brett Whitefield had them in the top 5 as well. So you're talking about your 5 starters, your 4 primary backups from what is, to me, obviously a top 5 unit in the league, no worse than top 10. This is one of the best offensive lines in the NFL. And not only is it a top-performing offensive line, but it's very unique. The way the Bills run the football, often using 6 offensive linemen, multiple tight ends, sometimes multiple backs, using the tackles the way that they do to pull, really do a lot of longer pulls with Spencer Brown and Deion Dawkins, combined with a pass protection scheme that doesn't give the offensive line a ton of help. A lot of 5-man protections. Not a lot of running backs staying in to help in pass pro. Under 10% of the time, running backs stay in and help in pass protection. Spencer Brown and Deion Dawkins not getting a lot of help on the edges with these marquee pass rushers. They go man versus man. And Josh Allen was the least sacked quarterback in the NFL last year. Now, some of that is Josh Allen and his ability to deal with pressure. But the Bills ask a lot of this offensive line. It's unique, and it takes care of business, whether it's running the ball or passing the ball. Bills offense is really good every year, and especially over the last few years, a lot of that can be credited to this offensive line, and there is incredible continuity. So that's number 1. Number 2, in terms of things I'm excited about for this offensive line in 2025, it's the depth and this developmental pipeline that exists. I really like what's beyond the starting 5. Of course, Dawkins, Edwards, McGovern, Torrance, Brown, your starters. But you look at the other 4 returning players from last year, and there's a lot to like. Alec Anderson took off last year as the 6th offensive lineman, really made a lot of noise in that spot. And that was a position, if you remember, the year before was held by David Edwards, who then became the Bills' starting left guard. And Anderson played over 300 snaps last year. And those are meaningful reps for him, as he may have a bigger role in the future. But he's proven himself in terms of a versatile player that can play that big tight end role, but can also fill in at any of the interior 3 spots and probably even play some tackle if necessary. You got Tylen Grable, who's the guy that I'm just really excited about. I didn't think much of him coming out of Central Florida. But what he showed us in training camp, what he showed us in preseason was terrific. He was the primary backup to Deion Dawkins and Spencer Brown last year. First off the bench for tackle. And I think he earned it. And I'm very excited about where his career is going to go. And I keep saying this, but I'm not sleeping on him as a future starter for this team, potentially at left guard in 2026. He was really good in the preseason. How about Ryan Vandemark? He's entering his 4th season with the Bills. 3 years already with Aaron Kromer. Has been the Bills' swing tackle. Got a chance to start that regular season game last year against Kansas City. I thought he was functional. All the athleticism and size you could want. And then there's Cedric Van Pran Granger, who's a player the Bills got in the 5th round. I graded him as a day 2 player that I looked at as a starter. Highly experienced player coming out of Georgia. Very successful offense, very successful offensive line. He was a team captain, a multi-year team captain. Loved his tape in college. That's an exciting mix of young players that are in their 2nd and 4th seasons with the team that you feel good about. Not that they've played a ton. We'll talk about that in a little bit, but there's a lot of intrigue with that group for me. And I certainly have more intrigue rooted in some players versus others, but there is something about each one of them that has me very excited for what they can mean to this team in a depth role, and maybe even as some of these guys as future starters. The last thing I want to get into and under why I'm excited for this Bills offensive line in 2025 is the coaching. Aaron Kromer. Dude's unbelievable. As proven as they come as an offensive line coach in the NFL. You think about the great offensive line coaches in the league. It's Aaron Kromer. It's Jeff Stoutland with the Eagles. It's Bill Callahan with Tennessee. And that's the group right now. Those are the marquee guys. And the Bills have one of them. And Aaron Kromer's resume is off the charts. He's been coaching offensive line in the NFL for a long time. You felt his impact in Buffalo. But throughout his career, whether it was with the Raiders in the early 2000s, that Super Bowl team, getting a chance to work with John Gruden and Bill Callahan. He was the O-line coach for the Saints at the peak of their run with Sean Payton, including that Super Bowl win in 2009. Then he's the offensive coordinator for the Bears for 2 seasons. His first year as OC of the Bears were number 2 in scoring offense. When has the Bears offense ever been good? Like literally ever. Number 2 scoring offense in the league year 1 under Aaron Kromer as the OC. And he actually comes to Buffalo. 2 years in Buffalo in 2015 and 2016. The Bills had the number 1 rushing offense in the league both years. Then he goes to the Rams. Is there for Sean McVay's first 4 seasons. A lot of success there, obviously. And then when we know what he's done now over the last 3 years, entering his 4th year back in Buffalo. The guy's resume is off the charts. The different players that he's been able to develop and guys that didn't even have a lot of pedigree, unlocking so much out of these players. You've seen it in Buffalo. You've seen what happened with Spencer Brown. You've seen Deion Dawkins play the best football of his career. It's exciting. And this guy's back, and he's had his hands on these players now for multiple years. Top 9 are back from last year. Couple of new additions this year. So whether it's the continuity, top to bottom, the developing depth, the outstanding starters, or the coaching. There's a lot to be excited about regarding this Bills offensive line in 2025.